Hey, good morning guys. I'm just going to do a quick video here, unedited, in one take. We're at one of our switching stations, one of the terminals right now, and I wanted to mention about power factor. Appreciate any comments you guys can add to this, because it's been 20 years since I've been to school and really dove deep into this. But essentially, you probably never have 100% perfect power factor out on the lines. If you look at a sine wave, a voltage and current, ideally those sine waves perfectly aligned. In reality, due to the loads on the line, your sine wave is going to either lead or lag. The current is going to lag the voltage or lead the voltage. So perfect power factor, 100%, they're right on top of each other. What causes the current to lag the voltage is inductive loads. There's a lot of inductive loads out there. A transformer just being tapped onto the line, the coils cause lagging power factor. Heavy industrial customers, you'll often see capacitor banks to correct the power factor because of all the machinery that causes that lag. The reason I wanted to take a look at this, let's flip the camera around, it's more interesting than my face. And I'll be sitting in the truck because it's pretty windy out there. So there was mention about smart meters measuring kVA. When you measure the kVA, that takes into account the power factor. When you measure kilowatts, that is what's actually being used. So as a company, when there's a bad power factor, we have to deliver, let's say we're delivering, I don't know, 100 kilowatts. But because of the power factor, the customer is only actually using 90 kilowatts. And if they use 90 kilowatts for 1 hour, they get billed for 90 kilowatt hours. That's why your power bill says 90 kilowatt hours. So all these myths online about being billed for those losses, that's not true. The smart meters can read the power factor. They have the capabilities of billing for kVA, but that's not something we do for residential customers. When there's a bad power factor on the line, we as a company, even if only 90% of that power is being used because of a lagging power factor, we have to generate that larger number, that 100%. So what we do to correct that, to make the system more efficient, is we have capacitor banks out in the field. Since we're at a terminal, this isn't just a capacitor bank, this is a massive for us in my little old province. There's a ton of capacitors connected all in parallel there, and those tiny little wires, those are all fuses. Usually when I drive by, I make sure none of the fuses are popped. If there is, I'll report that. It's not something that's an emergency. But when there's a really bad power factor on the line, this can automatically be closed in from our power system operator. That is an SF6 gas interrupter right here. The disconnect blade's open right now. But that SF6 gas interrupter is required to load break when this capacitor bank is open, because it will draw an arc. There must be maintenance of some sort being done here right now, because that capacitor bank is not online. So typically, as we correct the power factor, it is with capacitors. Sometimes if there's a lot of capacitive load on the line, usually caused from long stretches of underground cables, capacitor bank. And again, in the comments, help me out with this stuff, guys. No, I'm not even going to try to explain it. It's been too long. But an underground cable where you have the voltage going through the center with a layer of insulation, and the return neutral causes a capacitive resistance. Same thing can happen with the transmission line, because those three extremely high voltage lines, that air gap in between them acts like an insulator. Again, those real smart people, please jump in the comments and jump in on this discussion. But what I did want to show you guys is the massive reactor coils. So if we do end up with when the current is leading the voltage, it still offsets the power factor, just on the other end of the scale. So if you picture voltage and current being perfectly aligned, it's either going to lag or lead. I know that's a horrible description. Let's go over and take a look at the massive inductive coils. Two sets here. These, again, they can, these ones are actually manually closed in, I believe. There's just smaller little switches there. They're tied through to low side of the transformer. So that transformer, that's 345,000 volts coming in, those real tall stacks right here. 345,000 volts. And coming out the other side is 138 kV. And then these three little bushings here, we're down to our 1247. Well, they're energized at 12,000 or 7,200 volts phase to ground on a 12 kV system, but that's tied into our 345 kV yard. That's our 345 kV yard over here. Those are the air breakers for the 345 kV. Pretty interesting stuff. I always like coming to the terminal yards to do switching. Not something we specialize in as linemen. We do have substation techs. We have the low voltage and high voltage substation techs that mostly look after this stuff, and our transmission line crews. But we've got a transmission crew out on the line taking work permit right now, so I'm doing the switching for them. Might as well take you guys across the yard and show you guys the switching that we just did. So the guys are going to be working on a 230,000 volt system. This 230 kV line off to the left feeds into our terminal through that power transformer right there, and that's a 230 kV to 138 kV transformer. That feeds that entire 138 kV switch yard off to the right. So because the guys are working on the line off to the left of the screen, we had to open the line. That was done remotely through this breaker. So in a lot of my videos, when you see me operating reclosers and stuff, that's all stick operated or handles or push button in the terminal. These air breakers, they can be operated within the terminal switchgear, but they're typically operated remotely right from our head office. So this guy here, that gets disconnected internally, and it's done in such a way that it breaks the arc. You can't just go and open a switch like this while there's load on it, or you're gonna burn the place down. It would be really bad. So my steps here today, our power system operator opened that interrupter, and then they also remotely opened that disconnect switch. Let's zoom in just so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. This disconnect switch right here, and that blade right there. So my steps, even though this can be done remotely, they can't just hit a button and open that breaker and then open that disconnect, because even though the computer confirms it was open, we do have to have somebody on site to check that that device actually did open, and then we stand clear and they remotely open that disconnect. One of my other steps was to, we call it decouple. So there's the motor that operates that switch. So I moved that handle over and locked the hand wheel. So if somebody remotely attempts to close that in while the guys are working on the line, it can't. It's physically disconnected, as well as that pipe where the hand wheel on it is also physically locked and chained up. Another thing we have to check, this disconnect switch here, you can see how they're slightly leaning back. If there was a mechanical failure, those things are all bolted down and everything, but let's say there was mechanical failure, those blades are pretty heavy, so we do have to make sure that they're beyond 90 degrees. They have to be leaning at least 1 degree back so that there's no pressure on the pipe drive or anything towards the closed position. So just the last step, I'm waiting for the terminal that's probably about a 2-hour drive from here. The guy's got to do the same thing on his end. And then my last step, I'm going to close the ground switch. All of our ground switches are painted red, that red handle there. It's basically like putting 3 grounds on, but instead of putting 3 grounds on, there's a drive pipe. You see this pipe right here that's laying flat? That's actually going to flip up and slide right into that connection up top. So that's tied to ground. That's going to be a trip ground for that 230 kV line. I hope I'm not moving my camera around too much. I apologize if I am, guys. So, didn't get much sleep last night, so I apologize for my raspy voice. But we will take a quick walk over and I'll show you guys how I do the check open on the air breaker. I don't know if you can hear the lines buzzing or not. That side is all still energized. Obviously I can't see what's going on inside this thing. We can see flags showing that the unit is charged, the closing spring, and internally device is open. Let's just take a closer look at the switch itself. So that's the ground switch we're going to be closing in, which is going to rotate that pipe, go through those universals, and this pipe right here, and it's really windy out. That's going to slide right up. It's too dark to get a clear shot. There is a connector inside that's going to ground that line out. That's pretty much it. So just standing by, waiting for the power system operator to call, and then I'll be able to complete my last step, closing in that ground switch. Whoa, blown away. Alright guys, thanks for stopping in as always. Stand by, wait for that phone call, and we'll talk to you all very soon.